title today is Things Are Not Always As They Seem. So I may really be a tree. I don't know. The theme for this year, of course, is our value-based living. And we've talked a little bit about that already. And we're celebrating our diversity this month. But I was intrigued by the things are not always as they seem. And I realized when I started thinking about it, and hopefully, I bet you this is true for you too, that when you were a little kid, we were told stories and fairy tales and all these things like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Jack and the Beanstalk, Peter Pan, Beauty and the Beast. It's like, talk about, the world was populated with fairies and giants and magic trees and magic beans, and we could fly without wings. And it was really cool. Talk about diversity. There were dragons and everything. I still believe some of it. I believe in unicorns because they have the actual horns from some of them. Now, the fact that they actually come from the narwhal doesn't bother me at all. But they were really unicorns. So, but there's all these different exotic variations and experiences that we can have, and we do have them in our minds. But we also are living our own life story, and how do we want our life stories to turn out? What do we want it to look like? What story are you writing with your thoughts? Because we are always writing our stories with our thoughts. So if I believe there's unicorns, guess what shows up in my life? Lots of unicorns. They're not necessarily alive, but, photographs, stuffed animals, and the image is very alive. So you never know. So Ernest Holmes, the founder of the science of mind and body and soul and spirit and all this, the ancient wisdom and all those things, tells us, we can sit in the shade or move into the sunshine. Sitting in the shadow, we may not really believe that there is any sunshine. But the sun would be there all the time, and all the time we are in bondage. The real freedom exists. I'm saying we're always free to we're always free to create something different, something new. And so it is there, and we must awake to it. So we have that power. The law of mind as quickly creates one form as another for us. And we must allow the patterns of our thought to become molded from the highest sense of reality that we possess. So our highest thinking is what we want to live. By giving our complete attention to any one idea, we automatically embody it. So where you put your attention and your thoughts is what you're going to live. That's what's going to be alive in you. So we attract to ourselves the objective likeness of this embodiment. So if I want to believe in unicorns, I will attract unicorns. If I want to believe in a beautiful life, I attract a beautiful life. If I believe that everything is going down the chute, guess what'll happen? It will. So what do you want in your world? What do you want it to look like, feel like, to be like? What do you want? Now, going back to our early training, there are fairy tales. And things happen in them that it is not always as they appear. And then there are also historical events and facts. And things are also not always as they appear there. We need to listen to the story, the whole story, the whole thing. Because when you see chaos and unhappiness and it's hopeless or it's scary, all those things, we have the power and the spiritual tools to shift those conditions. That fear, that emotion is momentary. And by changing your thoughts, you can change that emotion. And I won't go through all the tools. You guys know the tools: the prayer, the meditation, the being together, the laughter, the joy, the creativity, all those. So there's so many tools. But we can focus on certain qualities and values that help us co-create a world that works for everyone. A world that works for everyone. And that's one of the things that a world that works for all, that we stand for. And one of those is releasing judgments. Because we do make judgments. We are human. That is actually part of our... Is this on? That's actually part of our survival mechanism. It's knowing that, hey, look, that tiger's not friendly this time. He's not out of a fairy tale. So that's an important thing to know. And then one of the other values and qualities is love. Knowing that love is so overarching. We sing about it, we express it. And forgiveness for ourselves and others. Usually, you have more to forgive yourself than anybody else. And you are harder on yourself than anyone else. And speaking for myself, I've done more damage that way than I want to think about. And then so, of course, the next value that I think of is patience. Breathing, taking a moment, patience. And then going beyond tolerance to acceptance. It's not just, that I tolerate the traffic. I accept that there is traffic and it's okay, or whatever. And then one other one that I think is really important is perspective. And sometimes it's also a time thing, and sometimes it's a space thing. So time it just passes, and things shift with that. But also, why do you think people need to go on vacation? You need to change the scene, change the space, change where you are, so you can come back with fresh eyes. So perspective has got that into it. And the other thing that keeps popping up is knowing people's stories. So when I know your story, I know and accept you on a different level. Our connection is stronger when we've shared our stories, when we know what's going on with each other. So I don't know about you, but when I was looking at fairy tales and stuff, the Beauty and the Beast just kept coming up at me. I don't know, maybe it's because the Disney movie's coming out next month. Because there's advertisements. You go to the movies, there's this advertisement. But I actually didn't know the story. That wasn't one of my childhood stories, was not Beauty and the Beast. But it spoke to me this time. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story. I had to go research it, but I'm going to tell you little tidbits. So Beauty, her name is Belle, and she's gorgeous. She's a daughter of a merchant. And she willingly goes to the Beast's castle as part of a backstory, which I won't get into. And so the Beast treats her like a queen. She's the mistress of the castle. Anything she ever wants is hers. And Beast is he's a perfect gentleman. They have dinner every night, and he asks her to marry him every night. And she says no every night. But then she goes to bed and dreams of a handsome prince asking her to marry him. And so she's going, oh. She doesn't get it. She's a little stupid. But anyway, but so she starts searching the castle to find the prince. And then, and it's a big castle, and it's really nice, and she has everything she could ever want. But she starts, she can't find the prince, and she gets homesick. So she asks the Beast kindly, can I go back and visit my family? And he says no. And then she comes back at him again, may I go back and visit my family? And he finally says yes, but you must come back in 1 week. And he gives her a magic mirror that she can view things in, and a secret ring that if she swirls the ring around 3 times, she'll come back to the castle. So she goes home, and is with her father and her brothers and her sisters, and she's having a gay old time, and she's happy, and there's more to it, but I won't go into it. And so then she starts feeling a little guilty because she broke her word. She told the beast that she would be back, and she's not. So then she uses the magic mirror. She looks in the mirror, and she can see the beast. And the beast is in the garden, lying at the base of a rose bush. And he's dying. And she goes, oh my God. So she uses her ring and spins it 3 times, and she's back in the garden with the beast. And she realizes that she doesn't just love him as a friend. She loves him as more than that. And as she's weeping over his body, her tears fall to his face, and he turns into a handsome prince. I paraphrase a lot. Anyway, love is transforming. The beast, who is played by, how many of you know Dan Stevens from Downton Abbey, who is also known as Matthew Crawley, who in the new movie is also known as the Beast. So you've got a transformation there. You also have Emma Watson, also known as Hermione Granger from Harry Potter, who is now Belle, Beauty. So our world is full of things that are not as they seem. It's like, oh my God. But the love does transform in the story. And you get to know each other at a new level, and there's new acceptance. And it's just powerful to listen to a story. And historical events, as I say, also are not as they always appear. There's more to it. And oh my God, I'm going to give this one a real quickie. This other story took place in, 39 years ago. There was a young boy who was in a class with a teacher named James Attenbury. And this teacher praised him because he was a beautiful writer. He was doing well, and he would write beautiful things on his compositions. And this was in Huntington Beach, California. And it's a beach town, and the guys are cool and everything. But this teacher was really well liked, but there was one problem. At that time, it was not okay to be a gay teacher. All the politicians were out. Anyway, you get the picture. So 39 years ago, this young boy reveled in being pointed out and praised and felt really good, and his self-esteem was high. He was learning, he was growing. His spark was lit by this kindness of this teacher. And the young boy's name was Larry Israelson. And he was a small, scrawny kind of little kid. And the teacher praised him in class, which was hard because the other students started picking on him, started calling him names, started doing all sorts of mean things to him. And he wouldn't say anything to anybody. He didn't talk about it. But the locker room was hell. So one day he went to the principal and he said, I need to transfer out of Mr. Attenbury's class. And he wouldn't tell the principal why. Because you're a good student, you're getting great grades. You need to transfer me out. So this young boy, Larry, went back and gave Mr. Attenbury the slip to transfer him out of the class. Didn't say anything. It was the middle of class. He just left. So for 39 years, Larry felt bad about not telling Mr. Attenbury thank you and why he had transferred out of the class, which had nothing to do with Mr. Attenbury, really. But for 39 years, Larry had been trying, well, not for 39 years. He went to school, he got married, he had kids, he was an adult, but then he started looking for Mr. Attenbury on the internet. For years, for 39 years, he kept looking. And he finally found him. But he had to go through, a letter to so-and-so to get contact with so-and-so. It was convoluted. But he did write him a letter. And he wrote, "I'm truly sorry for asking to be transferred out of your 7th grade social studies class at Sowers Middle School during the 1972-73 school year. I don't have any specific memories from my 2 years at Sowers, but at the top of one of my assignments you wrote, 'You will go far in life. Your command of the English language is exceptional. Looking back on my younger self, I am certain that I reveled in being one of the teacher's pets. As comfortable as I was in the classroom, however, the boys' locker room was something else entirely.'" So this young Larry carried this for years. And when he did finally find Mr. Attenbury, he wrote a letter explaining and asking for forgiveness. And of course, Mr. Attenbury's going, let me think about this. Let me remember. And he did remember. And what he did is he picked up the phone and said, "Larry, this is your teacher." So 39 years later, that forgiveness, that acceptance, and the world had had a chance to change. Perspectives had changed, tolerance, acceptance had shifted. Amazing. True story. And I abbreviated that one too. But it's just amazing because you reach out to each other, you listen to the story, you come from your heart. Patience, love, forgiveness for ourselves and others. Oh, so powerful. One last story, because I can't resist. How many of you know who Parker Palmer is? Okay, not very many. Parker Palmer is a wonderful teacher. He is a Quaker. And he's written several books, but one I'm reading right now is called Healing the Heart of Democracy. I would highly recommend it to anyone. And this story is actually from that book, the paperback version. And so John Lewis, Representative John Lewis, people know more about him, civil rights activist, was sitting with Parker Palmer in a bus in 2011, because they were recreating some of the civil rights routes and marches. And so, he's just going, "Yeah, tell me some stories." He wanted to get to know John Lewis more. So John Lewis told him that in 1961, he and a friend were in the bus station at Rock Hill, South Carolina. And they were minding their own business, and a bunch of white guys came in with baseball bats and proceeded to bloody them up and beat them. And John and his companion didn't do anything about it. They didn't fight back. They didn't even press charges. They just let it go. But they went on with their work, their civil rights work, and that's what they did. That's what they were there for. And then in 2009, up on Capitol Hill, a man and, two men actually walked into John Lewis, Representative John Lewis's office. And the man said, "Mr. Lewis, my name is Elwyn Wilson. I'm one of the men who beat you in that bus station back in 1961. I want to atone for the terrible thing that I did, so I've come to seek your forgiveness. Will you forgive me?" So John Lewis said, "Of course, I forgave him." We embraced. He and his son and I wept, and then we talked. So all those years later, there had been a shift in consciousness. And Elwyn Wilson had been carrying that guilt, that shame all those years. And he actually, can you imagine? He didn't probably live in Washington, but he went to Washington, went to Representative Lewis's office, and asked for forgiveness. Made atonement for that. And then Representative Lewis telling the story to Parker Palmer as they were driving on a bus through the South, through the killing fields of the Ku Klux Klan. And Elwyn Lewis had been a member. And as Parker Palmer tells it, John Lewis kind of sat back in his bus chair and he went, people can change. People can change. We can all change. Nothing is impossible. Nothing. Everything is always transforming. There's always a shift going on. And we have the tools. We know how to direct our thoughts. It's very powerful. We can co-create the reality of loving community wherever we go, wherever we are. We start with ourselves and work out. And we practice those values, those qualities I spoke about, the releasing judgment, the love, the forgiveness of yourself and others, patience. This one's really hard for me. Patience is not my strong suit. Ask anyone who knows me well. And then going beyond tolerance to acceptance. And it can be a big thing. I'm not going there. Okay. Some of you went there too. Acceptance of what has happened. Yes. And then perspective, time and space. Especially looking at the history, you realize, you look back, it's like, really? You know, some of the stuff that happened is like amazing. And we have survived and thrived despite it. It's amazing. So what are the stories that we need to seek out, that we want to live, to embody, to co-create our lives? What do we want our experience on this earth, this time, or whatever your belief is, to feel like, be like, live like? You know, where do I experience, or where do I need to listen with an open heart? What story is waiting to come to me that is so important for me to link up with someone? So it's so important to remember that we are constantly co-creating. And things are not what they seem. There's always more below the surface. There is always more. So Ernest Holmes also tells us, in practice, we clearly state in words what the ideas mean to us, and then we relate these statements to some needed experience or to some desired good which we have not been experiencing. So if there's an area in your life that's not quite in alignment with your highest and best or what you want, what words, what thoughts, what beliefs need to shift? And he continues, after using whatever words will bring conviction to our thought, we pause and we try to realize that the presence of the all-powerful, from which everything special good comes, is there. Because if we have that divine idea, Spirit will fill it, and it shows up materially or emotionally in our lives. It's always with us. So our affirmation for this Sunday or this week is in the bulletin. It's really short. So the affirmation, and you'd like to repeat after me, I pause and my thoughts transform. I pause and my thoughts transform. I pause and my thoughts transform. One more time. I pause and my thoughts transform. Namaste. Thank you.